To hear you.
Our audiences love me and you doing shows together.
Okay, looks like everything wants to work today. Hello, everybody. I don't know if anybody's watching on my. This thing has been interesting. It's interesting, interesting, interesting. And
Dr. Short, watch the wire that's in front of the screen.
the
I can
what?
see it right in front of the screen. It's like, oh, yeah, there we go. I'm going to start on my end as well.
I've already started.
Yep.
You know, you don't understand. Good evening. Hey, Devin. Hmm. Hey, Mark. Hold on. Let me. How are you doing? How is everybody?
What have you done for me lately? It's schools. What have y'all done for us lately? If there's no answer, the only thing we owe them.
You freedom of expression. It's somebody there's. Hey, Huntsville, Alabama. Come on in. Come on in. This is the first time in a long time that both Brother Q and I are doing a show together. Um, it's been a combination, y'all. I've been okay. Mark by Smith, Devin, Brother George, and all the other people. There are four people over here. Hey, Brother Bruce, how are you?
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk 2 in collaboration with Angry Black Man's Book Club.
Angry.
Angry, pissed off. MFM.
Yes,
And for me, I'm
absolutely.
excited that Dr. Short and myself are back again. You guys, like Dr. Short gave me some advice last week. We need to supplement what we're not getting in our foods into our diet, you guys, because not to get our channels banned or anything, to speak on certain things, we're not getting the proper nutrition that we're eating from the grocery stores in America right now.
Mm-hmm.
I had been exhausted, like I was playing football, 2 football games a week.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Short's getting over a cold and just and I'm not a sickly person. I don't think Dr. Short is a sickly person, but tonight we're gonna have a real interesting conversation. And whenever Dr. Short and myself have these conversations, they're always relevant from prior conversations. Dr. Short explained the Middle East, or what people say would be uh, Asia area or Africa area, eloquently a couple months ago, and tried to basically explain the whole chessboard to everybody. And for some reason, I believe that a lot of people still are a little confused of America's position on what's going on in the Middle East. So the title of our show is From the River to the Universities, because we see that all the major universities in this country, they're protesting. And I don't think that our government, the United States government, expected these protests to be who they are. But if you look at America, there has never been change without civil unrest. This is what people know how to do. You got to, I hate to say it, and we're never endorsing violence or anything, but you got to tear some shit up in America for people to understand that you ain't playing. So, Dr. Short, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and I was tired. I'm going to say this to everyone. There are people like Brother Mark Smith and Sister Devlin. They call and check in on me, and I want to say to you, I have been, like most people, victims of big pharma, victims of big agriculture, victims of all kinds of things. And the most unpleasant thing of all, I had a conversation with my general practitioner today, and they weren't pleased, but I haven't been pleased. There's a, I'm going to do tests tomorrow, and I'll find out in a week whether I'm anemic or not. But yesterday, guys, I had a blood test. Oh, okay, y'all, moderators. There's an idiot on one of the feeds. Um, you know what? I'm so black. I'm gonna block you. Okay. Oh my God. And say something for the little idiot here. The real beautiful thing is, I know somebody that went to the beach and stayed too long and they died. So if having a low melanin count is something to be proud of, you should tell that dead man. Now, that's how I deal with racism. I don't hate people, but there are hateful people out here, man. Hateful people. Hateful people out here. But that's okay. Look, and let me see. What I will tell you straight up is I get tested, and everybody out here, in particular, a lot of men, need to make certain that you gotta do some diligence. And by the way, the medical people do not do their jobs. I've seen quite a few doctors, I would say dozens, and not a one. I've had, I would say easily hundreds of blood samples taken, and no one ever said anemia even once in 2 years. I got 4 the other day. I guess I'll get 2 or 3. So that means a week I'll probably do like 8. The numbers do add up. They take a lot of blood, and they love black people's blood. A lot of us are O. O is universal. They can do anything with your blood. The racists will tell you that black blood is inferior, whatever black blood is, but O blood is universal. You know whose blood isn't universal? The bigot liars.
GCP, right?
Right. No, not just them, but just in general. Anybody tripping, trying to make what you look like less human than someone else. The reason that they're stealing the organs from the black prisoners in Alabama is that almost anybody in the world can use black organs, not white ones. For all that supremacy, can't use your blood or your organs. Think of it this way. Let me just say it like this. If I have a currency that can be used all over the world, every place it's accepted, And then there's another currency, like the old Zimbabwean money, that even Zimbabweans would not take. What are a range of descriptions that you could use between the currency that everybody would love to have and the currency that nobody would like to have?
They want that currency that you can use wherever.
Yeah, and what would they say about it? What's an adjective for the currency that everybody would like to have, and an adjective for the currency that nobody can use?
The adjective that nobody can use would be considered bullshit.
Or okay, and the one that everyone could use?
Gold.
Okay,
Platinum.
superior. And the one that you couldn't use?
Inferior.
Inferior. Not my view, but the one that was universal is superior to the one that's local. English is used all over the world. If I want to have a conversation in Tagalog, if I can't find a Filipino, I can't find someone that's been to the Philippines, I'm just ass out. If I want to speak in Twi from Ghana, I'm not a dog in Twi. If you're not in Ghana or Ivory Coast, no, it's not going to make it, right? But English or French, I'm not saying the languages are better, but the fact that it can go everywhere, it is more accepted. I'm not saying that any people are less than any other people, but I am saying some people's blood travels further than others. Some people can be put in any climate and the sun won't bother them, whether it's very cold or very hot. Some people need to be in specific places or they have problems. Okay, I just take Israel, Australia, a range of places. One of the biggest threats to them, skin cancer. Why? They weren't made for that climate. They're made for someplace like up near the Baltic where they're really from. And so they're constantly having to guard against getting cancer from being in an environment that's hostile to them biologically. I'm not telling people where to live. I'm only saying that this is so. All right? So, but understand, we don't get treated well in the hospitals. I had to lay my doctor out. I told about all the bad things that happened to me in the hospital at the hands of primarily white doctors and nurses. I recommended that she get a copy of Medical Apartheid. If anybody can make a donation tonight for about $8, I can get my doctor a courtesy copy of Medical Apartheid. It would do her some good. Plus, I had no idea that her replacement, that she said, well, if you don't want, I'm not able to see you, would you see my alternate? And their alternate's a white South African. It's just, I don't know her. I know they immediately, I'd like to give you a physical. And, the first thing, it's, I'm going to tell you guys a real story where people's heads are. Back in 1994, wow, 30 years ago, I helped a friend of mine set up a thing called Educational Opportunities for Youth Consortium in Oakland, California. Went out to support that, and I wanted to go to, because I like vinyl, I wanted to go out and get some old gospel and R&B records, and they had these really good vinyl stores in the Bay Area. And we went to Berkeley. They had some really good music. I had money, so I was gonna buy some, in particular, Mahalia Jackson albums. Real, just nice, good condition. And when I went up the the gentleman working the counter, what do you call those people? Um, Cashier, okay, wanted identification for my credit cards, which is fair. And I had multiple IDs. I had a state ID for Virginia. I had a state ID for Washington, D.C. I had a state ID for the University of Virginia. I had a college ID. I had my passport. And of course, he's white. He objected to all my IDs as not credible. When he rejected my first ID, I already knew what was going on. So you didn't take my student, you didn't take one state, you didn't take the next state. I said, so I know where this is going. And they rejected my passport. And my friends were getting tense, and I was calm. I grew up with really, really racist, terrible people who just hated black folks. And there's nothing you could do if you're surrounded by people that hate you other than to learn how to deal with them. And I knew that there was one form of ID that he would accept in order for me to make my purchase of just some old vintage black gospel music. By the way, we were in suits. I had on a blue cashmere coat. We in no way were raggedy or dirty. We were at it with shaved, cut. My friend was a doctor from Harvard University, but he rejected our IDs. And my friends were getting tense, and I just got calm. And I says, I have an ID I know that you would accept. And I says, I think I have something. And I asked him, would you accept a testicle print? And he got so excited. He ran over to the supervisor, who appeared to be his lover, and asked him if they'd accept a testicle print as a form of ID. He wanted it to be not my picture, not my passport, not my student ID of one of the best universities in the country. None of that meant as much to him as seeing what a print of my testicles looked like. And his lover, who's the guy in charge, recognized those inferior black guys aren't stupid. And he said, there's no such thing as a testicle print. Just go back. He rung us up. He was so embarrassed for his racist homosexual lover to be so racist and so stupid and so deviant that a U.S. passport and none of that's enough to make a basic transaction. But he would like to see my dick because I'm black. And that's the mindset of many people in the medical profession and everywhere else. And we have to understand that people are that sick. I think I'm going to have to start with. I plan, and I want to let you guys know, now that I'm in charge, that sounds like a come on. You seem cheap. Let me block you. That was a come on. You know what? I mean, why wasn't he sucking a dick somewhere instead of bothering our conversation? I mean that. use sodomite, okay? Nobody's stopping you. I hope you don't have a rectal prolapse. That's when the behind falls out because they've been hitting the booty so much. You know it falls out? Hmm. Okay. Fall that damn pride you got. Hmm. Now, so we can get to our topic, but um, the same way people wouldn't accept my ID for things that just function, I think there are a lot of people who don't accept the fact that there is a commonly held myth that the Middle East, in particular what we know, which is called Israel, is called, they say it was a land without a people for a people without a land. And at the heart, that's the problem. There's not a recognition that people were there, and that's contributing to a lot of the problem, is that some people can't and will not acknowledge that that land has been continuously populated for thousands of years. You didn't just come in and there was nothing there and you made it all nice. That's not exactly factual. In fact,
They built,
it's
built homes and all this like it wasn't there before.
it's there was something there. There were people there. I mean, if there was nothing there, there'd be no Jaffa or Jaffa. There'd be no Rafa. There'd be no Gaza, right? There'd be no Hebron or no Ramallah. There'd be no Jenin. There'd be no Jerusalem. There wouldn't be any of that with this land without people. There'd be no Jericho. And we could go on and on of what wouldn't be. There'd be no Khan Yunis, right? In order for those things to exist and to be on a historic map made before 1945, meant somebody had to be living there. And a city, a respectable sized city, you're talking about 10, 15, 20,000 people. And I just mentioned a couple of towns. I left out Bethlehem. These places people have been living there for a long time. They didn't just start in 1948. Somebody was there.
It was
Oh,
inhabited. Nobody.
but the story is it was completely just nothing but sand. And what's the saying? We made the desert bloom. Now, I'm not saying that they don't grow stuff in the Negev. I'm not saying that where people can live. I'm just starting this thing off with, we've got a problem when someone wants you to believe that absolutely nobody was there, not one, and that people just came in to an area where there was nobody and fixed it up. Because we've heard that story in America, that there was just this vast expanses, there was nobody here. And we wouldn't have reservations, and the Racial Integrity Act, it's 100 years old this year. You wouldn't have Indian wars and all these other things if nobody was here. That means, starting off with this whole discussion, is that there's a fundamental premise that's dominant in America more so than any place else in the world, that there wasn't a soul living in the Middle East and in the Holy Land until about maybe the 1880s, when the whole idea of people returning to Israel and this rise of this thing called Zionism, that all of these people came in and they were such prosperous farmers and all of this, that all of these Arabs from other places came in to work for these really wonderful people from Eastern and Western Europe. This is what is sold as historic truth and popular circles in America, and it doesn't hold weight. The more difficult story is that the people in Europe who are Jewish wanted to go someplace where they could be the most powerful, dominant group of people. And they looked around and because of the relationship and the history of Jerusalem, and they wanted that land. Although they had their eyes in other places, they absolutely wanted that. And there's a connection between ancient Israel and the Jewish religion. The Hebrew religion. Not necessarily all people who are in that religion have biological, historic linkages to the land. They have cultural, religious, love. I get all that for Israel, but you didn't live there. Your grandparents, nobody in your family's ever been there. You just got there within the last 120 years. And on top of that, and this is a very difficult subject, and I'm trying not to offend anyone. I don't want to. I want to just talk. This Israel that some people, or at least it's called the Jewish state, that's what they're calling it. And for some people, they'll tell you Jewish isn't a race. It's not a race. And it's not necessarily a religion, but it's a collection of cultures that have common things, right? All right. And even that's complicated because you have a huge number, in particular, of the European Jews who, on one hand, claim that the land that is in Israel, Palestine, Middle East, whatever you want to call it, the Levant, God gave to them and exclusively them forever. Now, many of the people that make that claim that this is our land and God gave it to us are atheists. Work that out. God doesn't exist, but he gave me all of this. And I have the right to take your home, to do whatever I want to you because you don't belong here, because thousands of years ago, God told another group of people that are Jewish that this was theirs. By the way, I claim it's from the Bible, or I'm sorry, the Torah, or the Pentateuch, or whatever, the early books of the Hebrew Bible, that God gave them this land. And, okay, this is so in the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible that they did get the land, but with rules of how they were supposed to conduct themselves. Break the rules, lose the land. Modern Zionism goes back and contradicts the Hebrew Bible and saying that it's ours no matter what. Read the book if you serve other gods. Leviticus 18 and 19. It goes all the way up from 8, just talking about things that you can't do. You can't be LGBTQ. By the way, friends, what's the most LGBTQ friendly city in the world? Do you guys know? Tel Aviv, one of the most Jewish cities in the world. Just saying. They didn't like abortion. If you look at who some of the biggest promoters of these practices around birth control, even the inventor of the birth control pill, a lot of these people come out of this group with these very strict provisions for how people would get the land and how they'd keep it, and stipulations if you do stuff. If you, for example, Epstein and all the sex and stuff that was going on, that gets you vomited out of the land. Says the Jehovah God, Yahweh, that gave the land, you can't be in the whoredom, you can't be in pedophilia. By the way, did you guys know if you're a pedophile, Jewish rabbi or Jew in general, and you go to Israel, the United States doesn't have an extradition policy, so you can molest all the kids you want. If you get to Israel, basically you're home free. So with your aliyah, the right to return, if I take advantage of people and I violate them, my Jewishness trumps all of these. Okay, these are the things that Jehovah God said, I will take this land from you if you guys get into this. If you know anything about the Hebrew Bible, from 1 Kings all the way to the last book of the Hebrew Bible, the people violated the covenant that they had with Jehovah God. The religious agreement was constantly busted up and broken, which resulted in the destruction of the temple twice, the enslavement and deportation of people to Babylon. This is what the Hebrew teachers, scholars, and historians have taught. The Zionists come and rebuke all of the traditions of the Judaism that where the land thing comes in. None of that counts. We have a right to the land irrespective of how we conduct ourselves or what we do. And reading the Bible and looking at the Hebrew prophets, Jehovah God does not bring people back to Israel in injustice, warfare, or immorality. Does anyone want to know which country in Western Asia produces all the porn? Does anyone want to know? Does anyone want to know which country in Western Asia was seen as the epicenter of human trafficking, aka slavery, and organ harvesting, and money laundering, and blood diamonds? Does anyone know where the epicenter of organized crime is in Western Asia? Does anyone know where one of the main markets for weaponry that gets people killed all over the world and gangs and so forth? Do you have any idea where it is? Do you have any idea who helps come up with the chemicals and all for the manufacturing of heroin and other things that is shipped all over the world to other people? Do you know who tends to, or not all, but some of who launder money? Okay, hacking, and I can go on and on with things that are quite, they're not holy practices. I'm not saying everyone in any society, I'm only saying that there is a strong, strong presence of this and that which we're told is holy. Understand that getting the promised land meant that people had to follow the commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Were the non-existing people that populated Western Asia, has their land been taken? Is it being taken in the West Bank right now? Land that people agreed to. The scriptures call on people to keep their word, to keep their agreements, their covenants. Literally everything that would make the land religiously theirs based on the Hebrew Bible, then and now, has been kicked around. The Holy Writ has been kicked around like a soccer ball in a dung heap. You know, I'm not saying, let me be clear, I've never, nor will I ever say, I'm against the existence of the state of Israel. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is, if you foundationally start a society that says that nobody was there, this land was virginal, not only was it virginal, God gave it to us and it's always ours, and we're the only people that are supposed to be here. Even if I have no biological connection to the people that were there thousands of years ago, you're going to have real problems. And that's what I think we have. And I want to say to you that, again, don't hate nobody. Don't want to take anything from anybody. Don't want anybody bombing, killing, attacking anybody. I want people being massacred in hospitals or buses or kibbutzes or in Rafah. But there's a fundamental attitude, an existential thing that it's either us or it's them, although them never existed. There would be no need for a campaign in Gaza or the West Bank if there wasn't somebody, a them, for you to conflict with.
Yeah, how you got conflict when nobody's supposed to be there?
If nobody's there, okay, but if somebody's there, how did you deal with it? And what is the real story? And believe me, and then we get into the difficulty of how, if you discuss this, people's lives are being ruined for opening their eyes and saying, hey, wait a minute. And losing their jobs, getting fired. And by the way, isn't that interesting that everyone has to run around censoring themselves and not saying what they think or see because they're going to be retaliated against? But who's going to retaliate against you? Or if they retaliate against you for what you say, who are they doing it to you for? We can't say that either. If I have a problem seeing stacks of dead babies wrapped up for Islamic burial, I become a Holocaust persecutor. If I say it bothers me to see so many dead children, I hate someone. Instead of me loving children, I hate the persons that killed the children instead of me hating the fact that the children were killed. Do you understand how they've got? And if you ever start saying, hey, wait a minute, why do I have to support kids getting killed to be a good human being? Isn't that, if I have any empathy for dead kids, something's wrong with me. But I'll just say this today. I think the Minister for the Interior or for Security in Israel, his name is Ben-Gvir, and he just said that the Israelis should not take any Palestinian prisoners. They should just kill them. You have to understand that they take children prisoners in Israel and on the West Bank, which means when you have people calling for the mass murder of people, and I've done everything I could not to get deep into this, not because I think what's happening is good, but I'm going to just put my cards on the table as a Black American. And, Brother Q, we're not in the same faith. I'm a Christian, and that's going to be a problem for a lot of people, okay? Number two, I am Black American. And we've caught hell from everybody. I'm going to give you, I used to work for, I think you have CVS in Pennsylvania, right?
CVS?
Yeah.
That's my store.
Okay, well, CVS in DC used to be called People's. People's got bought out by CVS. I remember one of my worst experiences working for CVS was working for a Palestinian pharmacist who's just absolutely racist and nasty. I am not suggesting that all Palestinians are racist, but some are. And how they treat and how it's related, it's just absolutely, I'll never forget it. It's over 30 years. It was just an awful experience. I pray God, please never, when they had staffing problems, I would go to different stores. I remember praying, God, please never let me have to go in that store ever again and deal with that vicious Palestinian woman. Because, I bet you she would treat Benjamin Netanyahu better than what she treated me.
Ooh.
And so, yes, for you Palestinians listening, you have a racial problem. And so to me, I don't want anybody hurting you, or I don't want any Jews getting hurt. But y'all want us to get up in the middle of you guys' fight. And I don't think anybody gives a damn. In fact, maybe everybody hates us. I'm not mad at the people. I think it's terrible what's happening. But I also know in Gaza, the word for black is abid. Abid is the same word as slave. It means black. Black and slave are interchangeable. Now, I'm supposed to go out and get the shit kicked out of me by police by a person that describes me as slave. Just as sure as I'm going to march for Mitch McConnell, niggas. No. I don't want anybody hurting you. But at the same point, in Michigan, is it paradise for black people? With the power of all of those people up there, have they cried out for the people in Flint who didn't have water way before Gaza's water got cut off? No. No. I'm not mad. It's not their fault. I'm only saying that, and the reason I'm saying this is that There are people dying in Sudan, probably in much greater numbers in Gaza, and it's not newsworthy because of the racism of the Islamic, yes, I'm going to say it, Brother Q, the Arab world doesn't give a damn about black people, which is why I would say to anyone, I'm not going to be a Muslim. I mean, I'll die first. Not because, the religion is so difficult, but the people's culture is very anti-black. And I'll tell you something, I know black people who are Christians that are disgusting. They worship white people, they don't worship God. And I find many blacks who are Muslims worship Arabs, but they don't worship God. And they're so distracted about everybody else's cause but their own. You'll meet people all over Africa obsessed with Palestine, but yet Sudan doesn't cross their mind. Libya doesn't cross their mind. Slavery in Mauritania doesn't cross their mind. Hidden slavery in Algeria and Tunisia and Mauritania and Morocco and Niger and other places where that doesn't really matter. People who practice or consider themselves more or less honorary Arabs to the point where they wage religious war against fellow Africans out of religion. I can't work with it, not in terms of something I'm going to willingly be a part of. I don't hate anyone. I'm not telling people what they should believe, although, I kind of like Jesus. In fact, I'll take a white Jesus. I'll take a white Jesus over people running after the Saud family that laughed when thousands of black people were crushed in Mecca in 2015. Yeah, I'll take the white Jesus first. Okay, how about that? So we just building up. So let's just go there. It's 200 days or plus since the Israelis and the Palestinians began to get into this. It is Bibi Netanyahu who lost his brother to Palestinians in Uganda back when they did the raid on Entebbe, to show you how clumsy the Netanyahu or Satanyahu, his brother got offed at the Entebbe airport. He was like the only person that got killed. Wrong member of the family. His brother should have lived. I wish Bibi had been in there. We'd be in a different place. But anyway, moving right along. We've seen the complete destruction of Gaza. We've seen it probably is thousands of people arrested, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people killed on the West Bank, hundreds of people killed in Lebanon. Unfortunately, in the case of Israel, outside of October 7th, I don't know how transparent the Israeli government has been in terms of its losses at the hands of Hezbollah, the resistance forces in the West Bank, the Iraqis who have been bombing them with missiles, and of course what's happened with the fighting with Hamas, the Al-Qassam brigades, and all the other different resistance groups in Gaza. I'm assuming that the Israelis have lost somewhere between 1,500 and 3,000 lives, if not more than that. I wish nobody was dead. And Palestinian deaths, they've been using 30,000 for too long. I'm gonna just help them out and say that basically they probably destroyed 100,000 Palestinians have probably perished, if not more than that. How could they know without the ability to check on they don't know. So it's an untold number. What we need to understand is Bibi Netanyahu has always been against a two-state solution, even though back in the 90s, 30 years ago, they had the Oslo agreements, 92 and 94. And the Palestinians were willing to only have 22% of the land. Okay, just 22% when they used to have 100. In order to have peace and have their own Palestinian state, they were supposed to have 22%. And Bibi Netanyahu has made it his career over the last 32 years to defeat the development of a Palestinian state at all costs, including surreptitiously getting money and funding to Hamas as the means to undermine and prevent there from being unity among Palestinians, and to fight against what everybody fights against in the Middle East, is Arab nationalism blended with some socialism. That's not liked by two sets of dominant players in Western Asia and what you call the Middle East. The theocracies don't like socialism. The theocracy I'm thinking of is Iran. The monarchies, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Jordan, they're all opposed to Arab nationalism blended with socialism. They don't like it. There is one Arab socialist country right now. It is Syria, which they're trying to take out. Now, so now Hamas represents Islamic Brotherhood fundamentalism that the monarchical, the same ones, the Saudis, the Qataris, the Omanis, the Emiratis, the Bahraini elites, right? The Kuwaitis, none of them, and the Jordanians, do not like Islamic fundamentalist groups, because in Islam, true Islam, the king, the true emir, is Allah, or Allah's representatives, which could be what's a good word for it? A caliph, or a council, ulama, a religious body of people guided by the Sharia and by the Quran and the Hadith. That's what most Muslims see as the king. When you so if you get a real fundamentalist thing in, like what you have in Iran, they got rid of their king. So you've got pretender monarchical Arab royals who talk Islam but are more Western than the Beverly Hillbillies. They keep enough of the Islamic stuff, but they're super oriented towards the West. So they're on a tightrope. Now, what they do is they give lip service and they throw money at the clergy, the Wahhabists, which is dominant on the Arabian Peninsula. And in the case of, say, the Houthi, or I should say the Ansar, is a more respectful name, their thing's a little different, because also there's the Shia thing. And as for Shias, they really tend to follow their imams, which is or the Ayatollahs is a better way. That they are the dominant leaders. People trust holy men of Islam to be their leaders, like what you have in Iran, what you have. You've got a secular republic in Iran, but believe me, the Ayatollah Sistani, he's got more power than anybody in Baghdad. You better believe the mullahs run that. They could just like clap their hand and you out. Okay, so, all right, just so you get it. So you have these tensions, right? And people like Netanyahu and others play on this. And as a result, this conflict has continued. Nobody really wants to, and let me be clear, outside of Iran, outside of Hezbollah, outside of the Ansar, and outside of some Iranian-aligned Iraqi groups, nobody really wants to put any skin in the game for the Palestinians in terms of the leading players. Let me be clear, people in the Islamic world, Arab world, hate what's happening to Palestinians, but their governments are in the pocket of either England, France, United States, or they're doing business with them. Now, with BRICS, there's a little pull, but still, if your businesses, if oil and gas is priced in dollars for the time being, everybody's got to deal with the currency of the United States, and this country with its friends could mess up your financial situation by denying loans, credit, removing you from SWIFT where you can't do transactions, the kinds of things that they've done to Russia and Iran. It can really crush some economies. And if all you got is oil and they jam the oil sales, they can tank your country. Now, with all this going on, let us already say what I said a long time ago. Israel would lose, and it has lost, the public relations war worldwide, everywhere but the United States. And that is why it's from the river to the uni. There's a unique problem in the United States. The problem in the United States is, one thing that's unstated is survivor guilt. Or should I say striver guilt. American Jewry did very little to save the lives of European Jews during the Second World War. Let me put it in very crass terms. They fucked up. They failed. They worked out getting tight with the Roosevelt administration and getting entrenched in the government. They got contracts. They were trying to move out of the American ghettos where many people were trapped, and or to simulate for the, because there's several types of Jews. You have American Jews that are Sephardic, that are wealthy, that were highly assimilated, but weren't completely accepted by the elite white Anglo-Saxon Protestant dominant elite class or caste. Part of getting into and getting closer to was downplaying Jewishness, even at the expense of their brothers and sisters being gassed, being mass murdered. It is one of the great betrayals in history of how little American Jews did for European Jewry. So now many intergenerationally have been playing catch up at the expense of Palestinians, at the expense of freedom of speech, at the expense of human rights, at the expense of freedom of expression, at the expense of historical reality and historical truth. All of that because, and so there is a zealotry for everything Israeli and everything there out of context to what it is. Let me make this clear. I was raised a Zionist. Everything Israel did was right. The Palestinians, all Arabs are wrong. They're Muslims anyway, so they're going to hell and they're wrong. Just whatever they say, just shut it out. They deserve it. God's will is being done through Israel. Let them do what they want to. I mean, if Muslims really get bad and they try to come after Israel, there'll be Armageddon. God will just go through and mow down all the Muslims, and we'll be raptured into heaven, be happy ever after, and let all Muslims be eaten by crows. This kind of stuff is commonly taught in churches, that there's this coming war. And maybe it's coming. But how could you claim to be a compassionate human being that believed in a God of love, and you want warfare, you want mass murder and mass killing and mass death? You're instigating it like racist Christian Zionist devils do in America, where I think they would give the Israelis bioweapons, just put it on all, kill some Arabs so they'll get mad, so we can have World War III, so Jesus can come and all just take us home. To hell with this. There are people who think that way. They want this war. They want World War III. The peace in the world is blocking them getting a hookup with white Jesus. White Jesus, because there's peace, because these damn Arabs won't just get mad and flick off and march on Israel so God can come kill them, and we can be spirited up to heaven, and we can listen to the Gaithers sing gospel music at the feet of Jesus. Right? This is what certain people think. Now, I want to remind you, the same people who support everything Israel does, even the children being killed. I asked someone, they began to justify, from what they call a Christian perspective, all the dead Palestinian kids. And I'm thinking, you're trying too hard. I get it, you're for them, you don't like to, but the babies deserve to just get killed in the hospital and pulled off and they start citing, and it's just, I had to tell someone, you know what, if you really think that that's God that wants these kids to get killed like that, I hope you don't tell people you believe that when you're trying to get them to join your religion, because I wouldn't join. If you were my introduction to Christianity, that killing kids in the hospital and shooting all that is what I need to hook up with, you can keep that damn God. In fact, I would flush it down like all the other stuff that I've let go out of me. All right? So these same people supported apartheid in South Africa, slavery in America. I mean, anything that's killing non-white people, they love it. It's always God's will. Now, you know what's not God's will? Somebody fighting their ass back. Now, that's the devil. Anything that doesn't kiss their pale ass is satanic. It's terrorism. If you slap me, I slap you, that's terrorism. Not me hitting you first, but you. And it's a God complex. We represent all truth. Only we can be violent. Only we can treat people the way, and nobody's going to do anything about it because we're so wonderful. We're chosen people. God picked us, and all of you guys are losers, and you deserve what you get. But that's for you and your religion. What if I'm in another religion, unlike you, Christian or Jew, where I think that Ishmael, the first son of Abraham, was blessed, and you guys are cursed, and you guys are in the wrong place, and you don't belong there. And in fact, we were here first. Or let me put in a spoiler before we bring it to America. The first head of state, the first prime minister of Israel was Ben-Gurion. He's a little Jewish guy with a white Jew bush. Up until the middle 1950s, even the Zionist Jewish leadership recognized that the Palestinians were descendant of the ancient Hebrews. They were part of ancient Israel. But that didn't fit the lie that the people were taught. Theodor Herzl, one of the fathers of Zionism, taught that Jews were a European people. Now, mind you, Palestine's not in Europe. So, wait a minute. Here we go. White racism is psychotic. There's a psychopathy to racism where things are what I say they are because I can kill you. I can bomb you. I can outlie you. And I can also accuse you of hating me if you disagree, if you question me. I think you're subhuman. I think you're intellectually inferior. You don't matter. You don't belong on the planet. You should be exterminated, but you should like me. You should agree with me. You should kiss my ass whenever I tell you to. And damn you. And if I kill you, don't fight back.
And don't disagree with the lies you just told me.
Yes, no matter what. If I tell you that you're a monkey and you have a tail, even if I have a tail and you don't, you have a tail. You go get a banana. This mindset is a progression of racism that existed in Europe that cosmopolitan people that were Jewish blended into this thing called Zionism. And the reason that America, which has its own type of Zionism called Manifest Destiny, South Africa has this thing called the Covenant, where God gave the white people the land in Africa. And if you go back and you'll read, you'll find the white South Africans taught that South Africa was empty when they got there. Where have we heard this tonight? Everything, just the white people came and made everything nice. And the black people came to work for them because the white people were so industrious and so Christian. They had such great values. It's a goddamn lie. And there were people there because even in Israel, the Israeli farmers are so good and they're so... But the Arabs told them how to farm. Just like the Indians taught the white people in America how to farm, and see how that worked out. Ultimately, we killed them off, we made them bad, and we put them in reservations like Gaza or the West Bank. And if you talk about that, you hate me, you're the bigot, why are you talking about this? This is in the past. Well, Floyd George isn't that far in the past. There are a range of killings. A little girl that got chopped up in the, what's her name, Sade, the one that got thrown in Lake Michigan. That wasn't 400 years ago. So all these dynamics, these overly zealous American Jews who did all kinds of things to help bring about the creation of the state of Israel, which I didn't say I was against existing, but the mafia, they were given weapons. All the UN agreements and stuff were violated to make certain that you got this state. And let's just segue real fast. When the state of Israel was declared, the Jewish, under the British, they were called terrorists, Irgun, Stern Gang, all these people. And by the way, all the folks who went around killing Palestinians, driving 750,000 of Palestinians out of the areas, the nicest areas that became Israel. A minimum of 15,000 or more Palestinians were massacred. In fact, in particular, I'm going to say this, these Zionist Jews in particular killed Palestinians that had been peaceful and friendly towards the Israelis. So it wasn't the violent ones, it was the ones that were loving, can't we all get along, and they got offed. This is what happened. By the way, saying this, people will call you an anti-Semite. They'll tell you hate people. And by the way, they took the people's homes and sometimes built on top of the villages that the Palestinians had, put new communities there, like what they're doing on the West Bank. All the while saying nobody's there. No.
Nobody was there, right?
They say so. And if you disagree, you're a racist and you're a Nazi. Even though all the Nazis are white, and the Nazis were German, and Ukrainian who work with the Israelis, right? Who give them money and bombs now. Hitler didn't look like us. Why the hell are we asked to consistently apologize for white-on-white violence in Europe? Why am I responsible to atone for atrocities committed against Europeans by other Europeans who both see me as subhuman? How did I become the bad guy? How did we become the bastards? Hitler hated black people. Hitler was killing black people before he killed Jews. Now, moving right along, those Palestinians that were driven out, they've been in refugee camps since 1948. Now, before I get too far, I've got to bring this up. Remember I said I'm not trying to get in the middle of this because no matter what I do, I'm going to get screwed on all sides. You need to know that during World War II, the Palestinian leadership was working with Hitler. See what I'm saying? Now, you're running with people who are proud of the fact that their leader, Mufti Husseini, was meeting with Hitler and helping to lead genocides in Yugoslavia. Oh, yes, he did. Oh, yeah. Killing Christians. Oh, yes, he did. Okay. I don't know if I want to be too tight with that. I understand you wanted freedom from the British. And maybe Hitler was the only deal in town. But do you think that Hitler would entertain supporting black liberation? No. I mean, on almost no basis could you even have a conversation. That's how much we hate it. The fact that he'd sit at the table with you, you were more acceptable to him than we ever could be. Okay? In case people don't know, a lot of the Nazis went to Egypt to help them develop weapons to attack the people in Israel. That's Egypt. Okay, I'm just saying. Please don't get mad at me. The Lebanese Christians modeled themselves on the Nazis, copied them straight off of Hitler. I don't think I want to get in the middle of that because I won't come out good. No way. Right? I'm just damned. So I don't like seeing anybody get killed on any side. But they're going to fight the same way people in Africa fight, same way Chinese and Japanese used to get into it, Koreans fight each other. People are going to fight no matter what we think. But we shouldn't, our tax money shouldn't go to it. We shouldn't fund genocide. We should be against it everywhere. Sudan and Congo too, not just Palestine. Haiti too. Let's get mad wherever this goes on. Let's get mad about Aceh, the Acehs in Indonesia. Let's get mad about what's going on in Cameroon for the people on the western portion. Let's get mad about wherever people are oppressed, not just there, but there should stop. Now, I just want to put that out there because I know this is my Jewish, they supported the Nazis. Okay, I know they support the Nazis and that's why I'm not trying to run after them. How about that? I don't like Nazis, period. However, I would say today, the Nazis, both in Germany and Ukraine, work with who? Israel. This is some confusing stuff. So we're getting to the campus. So what has happened is those people that were Palestinian that were in refugee camps, because there are millions of Palestinians. And this is part of why the Bibi Netanyahu and them are trying to do genocide in Gaza. 80% or more of the population of Jordan, which is about 12, 13 million people. So basically, you've got easily 10 million Palestinians in Jordan. Add that with the West Bank, that's 14 million. Add that with the people in Gaza, assuming that they didn't wipe out 700,000. Let's assume 2.5 million people in Gaza. That's what? 16.5 million Palestinians. There are at least 500,000 in Lebanon. That's 17 million, about 500,000 in Syria. What is that? 17.5 million people, and the number is growing. Oh, and I left out, there are 2 million in Israel. So you're talking about 20 million Palestinians down there. One thing I say about the Palestinians I really do admire, they're not into abortion. They're not into the stupid shit of our dumbass feminists, traitor feminists, baby-killing feminists. And it's interesting, the Palestinians, I don't care how many of them are rainbow, they don't put it on blast, gayness. They emphasize, because they know they got to keep their numbers up. So, roughly speaking, you got 20 million Palestinians in that area. And you've got about, I love this number, you've got about 6 million Jews. Don't you, that number keeps coming up. Israel's got about 9 million people, but let me just say to you, hundreds of thousands have left, and we know that the ones that are Palestinian, or should I say they call them Israeli Arabs, who are second-class citizens, they're about 2 million. So if, let's say, I'd say hundreds of thousands of people have left Israel, then a lot of them are dual citizens that don't really live there. They're there for the fun of getting over on the Palestinians. So I'm going to say they're about 6 million, 7 million to be generous. But the way it's looking, they're outnumbered 3-1 already.
Before you get into the university, Dr. Short, let's take a 5-minute break.
We can take a break.
We'll take a break on this channel for a second, you guys. I need to use the bathroom real quick, and then we're gonna come back. You can finish, Dr. Short. I'll just drop out.
Okay, so Biden wants to welcome refugees from Palestine. You know what? I'm not saying who goes where or what, but the people in Egypt don't want the Palestinians because if they've been radicalized by what they've been through, they're going to fight for justice or fight who they perceive as their enemies. They've been mistreated. They have. It's a fact of history. If you see how people are acting on the campuses now, Palestinians, they got balls. I mean, they've got balls like a planetarium. They're not like our people that are weak, that are cowardly. So there are people that are brilliant. You have to understand, Palestinian people are very well educated. They're the most educated people in the Middle East. Think about all the hospitals they had in Gaza. They had lots of hospitals in Gaza with 2.7 million people. We black Americans are 75 million people, and we only have 2 hospitals. To show you how backwards we are. They had dozens of hospitals. They had a good dozen hospitals in Gaza. And we have 2. 2. Palestinians are well educated. They're very literate. They're very serious about, and have been, and were there when the Israelis got there. They're among the most advanced people in the world, Palestinians. Don't let the stereotypes of them all being terrorists fool you. Brilliant people, gifted people, and intelligent people. Palestinians are not jokes. If you look at their resistance to the IDF, they've been making their own weapons and blowing up the some of the best tanks in the world, the Makfa tanks. These Palestinians, invented their own sniper weapons. They, they've been battling the Israeli army better than practically any Arab army, with the exception of Hezbollah, with nothing to work with primarily. With spit and piss have been fighting the Israelis. And what I want to say to black Americans, we can't get a goddamn boycott nonviolent. You think we gonna make it being the bitch ass, weak ass people that don't fight for anything, can't stick to anything? And you need to pay attention to the Palestinians for only one reason. We're gonna be like the Palestinians in 10, 15 years. If we don't do something about our traitor leaders, the Boule, the Eastern Star, the Masons, the Democrat or Die coons, we're going to be worse off than the Palestinians. In fact, we're moving in that direction. We need to take some lessons, not so much how we respond to it, but to understand solidarity and some other things that we don't have. Now, I'm going to bring it to the campus. With the Palestinians being in refugee camps, they're not wanted. There may be 100,000 Palestinians in Egypt. If you saw, Egypt has built up on this border to make certain the Palestinians can't come there. The Jordanians don't want them. Part of the Lebanese civil war was the Palestinian refugees. They got involved in the internal confessional politics of Lebanon. Let me explain to you what I mean. They have a confessional system in Lebanon. What it basically means is your political representation is based on your religious orientation. Palestinians being, I'd say 2/3, about 70% Muslim, although there are some Palestinian Jews and Palestinian Christians. You won't hear that. And by the way, Palestinian Christians don't exist because the racist, white supremacist, Nazi evangelicals have such a hard-on for the second coming of Christ. They don't want you to look at Israel with any complexity. So if a Christian gets murdered or bombed, man, you messing with my Zionist, Christian Zionist. I don't want to hear about the Christian church getting bombed. Supposedly Christians are supposed to be concerned about each other. Well, they don't care about black Christians. Why would they care about sand nigger Christians? It's all the same. We're all subhuman trash, which is why I'll tell you, a whole lot of people screaming about Israel, that lets you know that they're going to hell. It isn't their concern about Israel, per se. It's the fact that you don't care about anybody else. And in fact, these evangelicals don't care about Jews. The Bible says 2/3 of the Jews are going to get killed. So they're like, World War III, World War III. We will, Jesus will rock you. Jesus will rock you. Star David on your face, you're a big disgrace. Right. I mean, these people are incredibly evil. These are segregationists. These are people that beat the black marches. They're the ones that sharecrop. Now these folks have found another place to hurt people that aren't white. Go white evangelical bigots. You guys at least they're consistent. You know who's not consistent? Black people standing up for what they say they believe. We're very inconsistent people. That's a recipe for being genocided. I want to say something else about the Palestinian people. In the late 70s, Palestinian people who got tired of being betrayed by sellout leadership, they began to have tribunals. And everybody that wouldn't side with Palestinian people were dragged in with communities like threatening to burn people's stores and kill them. If you sell us out, we may not be able to get the Israelis, but we'll burn your house, we'll get your wife. And that's why you have some solidarity among Palestinians, because it's a consequence for betraying your people. You know which people on the planet of the earth, no matter what you do to betray or stab in the back or use them, they can laugh all the way to the bank and be loved and respected as paragons of virtue? The Black American community, where we make heroes of people who are genociding us. We're the most disgraceful people in the world. We're people who hate our guts, who betray us, who want us all dead, as long as their families make out okay, like Michael Jordan
Congressional
or
black
Jay
holes.
Z or Puff Daddy or Oprah. We have all the people you talk about there. Al Sharpton. All of these people don't care what happens to the rest of us. We love them, but they're people who've given their all to save our help our community. We wouldn't piss on them if someone poured gas on them. And so the Palestinians back, wow, it's almost 40 years ago, started saying, "You bastards that sell us out, we can't get to Menachem Begin. We can't, but we're gonna get you. We blame you personally for our oppression, which is what I suggest that we start doing here." Maxine Waters, I blame you for gentrification in Los. I don't want to hear about white people. I want to go after the black person who sat in the boardroom and got money from Wells Fargo.
So our traders get promotions.
Like that no good preacher in the Bay Area, Anus Brown, the one that got money from Wells Fargo, who's against reparations.
Reparations.
This is why we're not getting reparations. Do you know? Let me just say something to your audience. How many of you out there like the boulet? How many of you are dumbass people? Maybe you had some sex or got some weed or got to go to stupid college parties with these people. How many of you like the boulet?
Raise your hand. Raise your
Raise your hand.
hand.
Who likes the boulet? How many of you like these people with with the brands on their private parts and buttocks and chest and all this, wear the regalia all the time and act like they're important? The ones who are stealing all the money, making all the HBCUs go broke. The ones who get elected to office that only help incompetent people that are in their groups get jobs. Let me just say to you that there's a little group called Divine Nine for Reparations. Did you guys know it's a small group of Greek letter Negroes that know reparations is right, and they're trying to get their fellow frat and sorority members to support reparations. They have to beg. And they know that the people, they're in an organization, those dumbasses, their organization is against their own people. But because I guess maybe they munched a little carpet or ate a little male seminal fluid when they were male, and they bond with it, they want to keep the secret so. And plus, they took pledges to the little demonic gods that prevail. All of the
Access to whiteness.
Well, no, it's not to whiteness. Do you know all the Greek letter societies, black ones, have a pagan god or Luciferian god that they pray to? Even, and that's why the black church isn't shit. The black church is a pagan, degenerate brothel full of demons and degenerates, because your black pastors that are Greek letter, they prayed and they formed an alliance with the devil in order to make it in these societies. And so if you are a pagan and you come into a church or you run a church, it's not going to really be strong, not spiritually, or it won't have any real foundation, because these people are compromised. Yep, if you're in that stuff, you're an enemy to your own people. And I don't care what you say. I don't care about the people. You're a traitor. And until black Americans develop a concept of what a traitor and treasonous their group, We may as well just all do group suicide, like Heaven's Gate. Remember, all the people killed themselves. That's what we're doing, trusting these people who want to be in another group to somehow they're going to do right by us. It's never going to happen. The Boule will always be an enemy to all of us. They're even an enemy to each other. That's why that Divine Nine for reparations is hoping somehow they can convince their big brothers and big sisters to to embrace the idea of reparations. Imagine that I got to beg another, pardon my language, dumb fuck black American with the college education that they can't get it through their thick, self-hating, weaved covered skulls that we are owed a debt. And they're the ones who run the universities and the public schools. We wonder why we're so stupid and why the church doesn't say anything when the whole neighborhoods are gentrified, when there are more and more homeless people. And these same churches now, do you know, they're teaching people in their church Spanish, not because they want people to have jobs, but they want people to be able to give food to people in the country legally when their own members are starving. This is the kind of stuff. This is why you won't catch me dead going to most churches. They're not worth a damn. And I believe in God, but I don't believe. In fact, the same way Dracula doesn't like the cross, it's the same way I don't like bullshit. Now let's go back to Palestine. The Palestinian people in the late 70s created a system where they could make people be on code. And at the same time, the Palestinians that were in these refugee camps, Gaza's a refugee camp, many of them began to go to other countries. Many of them, through the United Nations and all, got educational opportunities. A lot of them are doctors. As I said, they're very bright people. They've always been. Some of them have come to America. Their numbers have grown, and as the United States has become more diverse and more Islamic, and people need to understand, in particular, in fact, let me just speak to all of the American dummies, American secular dummies, because for the last 40 or 50 years, a lot of people in America, religion doesn't matter. I don't like organized religion. I just don't pay attention. Just people are people, and right, and a butterfly could be Jesus. A hummingbird could be Jesus, right? This stupid shit that Americans are on is a trap. You know why? Because I can't go anywhere in the Islamic world and say a butterfly or hummingbird is God and not get the shit kicked out of me. If I do think that, I better keep it to myself. There's an absolute concept that there's Allah and Muhammad's his prophet. There's the Surat al-Mustaqim, that the 5 pillars of faith, that the Hadith, there's the Sunnah. And even if you don't follow it, you better not disrespect it, because you will get crushed. There's no question. You can't do stuff like, say, a Jewish comedian jerking off with the Bible. Do something disrespectful to a Quran in a Muslim environment. I dare you. Tear a page out in front of a Muslim. See how fast you hit the floor. If he doesn't get you there, see how fast he tells someone, this person's, you may have 100 people outside your house. How many of you know, when I see people tear up Bibles and stuff like that, y'all are spoiled. Y'all don't realize how, as much people, what a Christianized culture gives you the option to give the finger to the religion of the land. There's no consequence. I could get up and say, well, Jesus and Mary did it. And you better not say anything like that around any Muslim of Muhammad, because you're going to have a problem. It's not accepted, okay? The reason I'm saying that is that we have more and more people coming to this country who don't have the same devil-may-care, lackadaisical approach to religion or faith or belief. They absolutely believe that, okay? They damn sure mean it. They really mean what they say. So Where I'm going with that is that in Islam, as there is in Christianity, as in Judaism, and in other, they have what's called eschatology, which is the study of the end times. The Islamic world teaches that they're going to take Jerusalem back, and the Mahdi, the Messiah, is going to rule from Al-Quds, Quds, which is how they say Jerusalem in Arabic. So there's a major motivation throughout the Islamic world for Jerusalem to be in Islamic hands. And who's in Jerusalem? Palestinians. What's the name of the Palestinian struggle? Al-Aqsa flood. What's in Al-Aqsa is the main masjid or Islamic temple or religious edifice in Jerusalem, the third holiest shrine in Islam. And these people want it back. They think of it as haram. It's filthy for people who have invaded to control and dominate a sacred site that has been unique and loved and esteemed by Muslims for over 1,000 years. Now, all of a sudden, all of these people are coming to America, the country that's funded the seizure of Jerusalem, has moved its embassy to Jerusalem, has been the main backer of all this violence in part of what's considered the Holy Land as well to Muslims as it is to Jews or Christians. And then you get this guy, Bibi Netanyahu, who's done everything he could to prevent there from being peace between Palestinians and Jews, to the point of building up such hatred against Yitzhak Rabin, where the prime minister of Israel was assassinated behind agitation done by Bibi Netanyahu. You have a person who makes it clear that they really want all the Palestinians out. In fact, one of the great, great philosophers of Zionism is Jabotinsky. If you read Jabotinsky, they basically think that there should be absolutely no Arabs, that it should be only Jewish people. You have to understand that right now Israel's declared or called the Jewish state. They tried to set up where only Jews can live in Israel, period. People tell you it's not apartheid, but if you're not Jewish, you're treated differently under the law. This is a fact. Whether you're Christian, Muslim, Druze, you're not treated the same. Now, a lot of people know this, and in particular, the Palestinian people learned something. Palestinian people 60 years ago, like other people, Palestinian people were watching something very interesting. They were watching something that captivated the world. They were watching the civil rights movement in the United States. People who had been kicked around, beaten around, standing up. Not that they hadn't been fighting, but what they did hadn't worked exactly, so they had several different approaches. A military approach, right, with al-Fatah, the armed wing of the Palestine Liberation Organization, established which year? 1965, a year after the Civil Rights Bill was passed in the United States. We're the only dumbass people in the world that can't build on our successes, can't keep it up. We inspire everybody but one another. It's so, black folks are like being on a basketball team with the crooked coach that throws all the games to get a payoff, which is what our black leadership does. Traitors. Traitors. By the way, the reason the Palestinian thing isn't moving any better is the Palestinians have traitors too. The biggest traitor in the history of Palestinians right now is Mahmoud Abbas. He's a piece of shit Palestinian who runs the West Bank. He's against his own people. He's basically a sex doll to the Zionists and to the American Zionists. Israel, he's a slave, he's a liar, he's weak, he represses his own people. He's like Clyburn and Hakeem Jeffries and all the other bad black people who hold us down, wrapped up into one. He's no good, he's useless. He has weapons, he uses it to kill his own people. He wouldn't bust a grape to protect them from the oppression. All right. So there's a coon. A coon is in charge of the largest Palestinian group. And I'll remind everyone I watched with my own eyes this coon, Mahmoud Abbas, ask Condoleezza Rice to give him weapons to kill Palestinians on September 8th, 2005. So here's a man who's Palestinian asking for the Americans to the Israelis to give him guns to kill people in Hamas and his activists. Just like black leaders here and black educators. A lot of people talk about Vietnam. Did you know that black Greek letter leaders, presidents of black schools, gave the names of the activist students to the draft boards to get the good, upright, outspoken young black men killed? Y'all wonder why I talk about those bitches. If we were really serious, if we were anything close to how Palestinians were, not me, because I believe in nonviolence, but more angry people, some of the coons in our neighborhood, man, they would be begging to be, please help us, short, help us, brother. Tell people not to fight us. And that's it. They wouldn't fight you if you stopped selling out. Quit. Go cold turkey on being a coon. Anyway, moving back to the Palestinians.
Cold turkey on being a coon.
The as what happened also in 1965, alongside the founding of the PLO, was they changed the immigration laws to allow all kinds of people, not just white people, to immigrate to the United States, which meant a good number of people who were in refugee camps used that UN network and other things to bring people here. Huh? And so there's been for almost 60 years an inflow of people from the Middle East to the United States. Also, what happened in '65, Malcolm X died, was assassinated. Islam became a far more popular religion in the United States in the years following the death of Malcolm X. And with Wallace Muhammad, Islam became a more accepted religion in the United States from the middle 1970s onward. So you had a growth of Islam in the country. You also had a situation wherein what was also kicking off in the 60s, let me go back and just say to you, and in honor of my dear friend, my elder, Yeremia Sashibe, died about 2 years ago. One of my godfathers, he was at a place in South Africa called Sharpeville, where the whites just massacred black people. And so you began to have a violent struggle against the South African government, which was very tight with the Israeli government. People need to understand that South Africa is dominated by the Anglo-American Corporation, which is run by the Oppenheimers. It is a Jewish family. Jewish people dominate the economy of South Africa. I'm not picking on anyone. I'm just saying Anglo-American Corporation owns or controls 60% of the South African economy, and it's a Jewish-owned company. I think 60% is a greater part of 100, right? Okay, you got 60%, you basically got it. So, no, I'm not a bigot. Okay, so the little mines, and they're digging up the guys' butts to see if they got diamonds or gold up their ass, that's a Jewish business. It actually sounds like what happens at Diddy's parties when you think about it. Anyway, moving right along. the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, the African liberation movements, the independence movements, the anti-colonial movements, everybody embraced the Palestinians. So, being a person that was on a college campus in the 70s, which I was, and early 80s, which I was, the Palestinian issue, in particular because the Palestinians hooked up with the Black Panthers, the Palestinians hooked up with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the Palestinians linked up with Black American activist groups and militant groups, in particular those on the left, from the late 60s onward. So there's been a long period of cooperation between Black activists and Palestinian activists for over almost 60 years. Almost. And on top of that, there are other groups, Quakers and others, Unitarian Universalists. Other people have steadily become more interested. Now, what really has helped this thing grow is for up until recent times, the last, say, last 12 years, 13 years, the news was dominated by the British, Americans, and French. Basically, Western white people told us what to think and how to look at things. However, with the rise of Al Jazeera, Press TV, RT, other people who aren't necessarily Western Europeans or Americans are able to mass educate people, and I need to add the expansion of access to the internet. You can get information, although it's being heavily censored now, which is why, and GCP wants TikTok. Don't blame me. I didn't make them want it. I'm just saying, with the internet and also with the increasing numbers of people from Islamic and Middle Eastern countries moving to Europe, America, and other places, and a lot of them being well educated. A lot of them, I mean, they're not dummies. We need to understand something. Stupidity isn't glorified among people who want to be free, which says to me Black people don't want to be free because stupid ass, lazy ass, pathetic people are held up, and brilliant people are marginal. That's a cultural problem that we better kick or we're damned. It's just my sidebar. Now, moving right along, Edward Saidi with his book Orientalism, there have been a range of people who begun to chip away at the narrative that Israel was a land without a people for a people without a land. If you were my age, you were bombarded. Take a giant step, Exodus, everything. I'm sorry, as I said, I'm a Zionist. I mean, everything Arab, anything Arabs did, they deserved it. They were wrong. They were all no good. Jewish people, God's people. Shut the hell up, Arab, and just let these people live so God will come back. I mean, I mean imagine. Luckily for some of us, we would meet people, and I would just say to you, I met like a total of maybe, before I was 21, I only met 2 or 3 people that are Palestinian. You see Yasser Arafat on television, but now there are Palestinians everywhere. I mean, they're like parking police. You can't miss them. This thing has been coming, and the Palestinians have based their activism on Black movements, both South African and Black American, with their own spin on it. Now, I'm saying the media's changed. The internet did it. Movies have done it. But more importantly, the international news, the news cycle, things have changed. And in particular, the last few times of what the Israelis call trimming the grass, it's a euphemism for them going in and mass killing people in Gaza or the West Bank. That, in particular, let's go back to the 80s and deal with the Intifada, where the Palestinians rose up. Intifada means a revolt. This happened in the 80s, and the Israelis they just did whatever, whatever they wanted to do. But the Palestinians at least fought back. Palestinians were tired of being occupied. Let me just say to you, in 1967, when you had the 6-day war or 7-day war, six, okay, the Israelis took Jerusalem and they took the West Bank. And from that time, from 1967 to now, so it's almost 60 years, they've lived under occupation where they've been treated like animals. And the people snapped in the 80s. And one of the things that emerged in the 80s also was Hezbollah, which the Israelis helped to fund and expand in the 90s because they wanted to counter from the PLO. But in a nutshell, what happened, there was another intifada that was in like the 90s, early 2000s, where they were blowing up buses and doing suicide bombings and all this other kind of stuff. And between the Intifada, or just before the Intifada, and before and just after the second Intifada, you had Israel invade Lebanon, and there was a massacre in the either late 70s, early 80s. It was called Shatila Sabra, where they just went around. They killed maybe a few thousand women, children, just cut people up. They used Lebanese Christian Nazi phalangists to just kill Palestinians. Old people, blow them up, throw grenades. This was embarrassing. But again, America supported Israel, so this happened. Later, ultimately, to get the PLO out of Israel, the Israeli army really moved in and blew up Beirut and drove the Palestinians out. They ended up going to Libya or Tripoli, either Tunisia or Libya. I forget. It's one of those places. Anyway, the way that they acted in Lebanon, where they just destroyed the country to get at the Palestinians. The Lebanese got destroyed for just being in their own country. Something else occurred, and that was the rise of the resistance to the Israeli presence in Lebanon. And this was the beginning of them using suicide bombers, which was very effective. They were blowing up everything. Remember, the suicide bombers blew up the Marine barracks about 83, 84. These people were blowing up everything. They didn't care. This Parker car just blows shit up. These people forced people to pay attention. I'm not saying in the 70s where the Palestinians were hijacking planes, hijacking cruise ships like the Achille Lauro. These people were demanding attention, but I don't think they really got the break. They crashed the Berlin Olympics and killed the Israeli Olympic team in 72. They were trying to do things to get people to deal with their situation. They didn't really begin to move forward until after the first Intifada, and they began to talk about a two-state solution, and which was sort of agreed to by Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat. And of course, Bibi Netanyahu had something to do with both. Yasser Arafat, I believe, was poisoned, and they got rid of him. And of course, Rabin got assassinated. But the Palestinians at least the PLO became the Palestine Authority, they got a degree of legitimacy and recognition uh, beyond just being terrorists. Instead, uh, Yasser Arafat, the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization, got statesman status among many people in the world. And of course, his death, da 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 da. But coming to now, uh, a lot of people have learned over the years with more media access. What the Palestinians have done is gone all over for decades, telling people about what their situation is. You have CARE, what is it, Center for Arab and Islamic Relations, whatever. These people have copied the efforts of the NAACP and other black organizations in order, or the South African groups, to get the public to understand them. So they did get a core of people to back them. And now this has come a full circle because you've had several situations that have occurred between say, 2006 and now. In 2006, the Israelis got their behinds kicked by Hezbollah. But they did things like they massacred some Palestinian children at Kana, like just blew up a bunch of kids and they don't care. There have been more and more stories. There's a white girl named Rachel Corrie who was fighting against Israeli settlers. These are Americans that go and steal homes from Palestinians on the West Bank. These are, in fact, there was a case that really rocked people, but of course they quieted it down. A American Jew named Baruch Goldstein went into a masjid and killed almost 30 Arabs, Muslims, just murdered them. And he was a hero to a lot of people, but a lot of folks are trying to figure out, when is murder good? And the media is saying, well, when an Israeli or a Jew kills someone, it's not the same as when an Arab stabs one of us. Isn't the same as if we kill a bunch of them. There, a lot of the atrocities that have been hidden. You have to understand, the American news is dominated, in particular the news from the Middle East has to go through the IDF before it's given to the American public. So we weren't getting the actual news until these new outlets. Al Jazeera led the way of showing people what's really going on in Israel, Palestine. Press TV and there are other such groups that were showing this. So in 2006, when Hezbollah beat the Israelis, and then later when there were several instances where the Israelis went into Gaza and were bombing and killing people in retaliation for rockets being fired. I don't know if y'all remember in 2010-11 where the guy was carrying his daughter in a plastic bag, and it looked like he had a stack of ribs. The first images of the suffering of Palestinian people began to reach the American public maybe about 10, 12 years ago. And this most recent thing, where the bombing, and in fact, this is why so many journalists have been murdered by the Israelis to win the propaganda war, is that I tell people, again, I was raised as a Zionist. I would never make myself trying to defend somebody's Islam. I mean, but you get grossed out by seeing all the kids blown up. It's like saying, I serve a loving God. I can't sign on this. I can't get with y'all. I believe that people have a right to a state, but you bomb the hospital, torture people, making folk walk around naked, shooting kids that call for help, blow up the ambulances, all this other kind of stuff. Eventually, some people, although most Americans are desensitized, and it's only sand niggers, and the operative word isn't sand, the operative word is nigger. these are people that don't really matter. So what happens? But remember the they said the Palestinians should stop being violent. So what did the Palestinians do? They had a march to the wall, and they were like just shot by the thousands. People in will they just killed the people. It's so obvious they just want to kill them. Of course, they went in 2014 and bombed and shot, and they had a ceasefire. This is cycles of conflict between the Israelis and Palestinians, and there were people trying to take boats in, and they rammed the boat and sunk it and killed people trying to help the Palestinians. So this people who are thinking, who are paying attention to what's going on in the world, knew about Israel. Aside from that, there have been people like Norman Finkelstein. Um, there are a good number of people who are Israelis who've been criticizing Zionism. Phyllis Benish, there are people who have been saying this isn't right. And now, with this gross, in your face killing, just systematic effort to do genocide in Gaza, the dam is broken. And now it's on the college campuses. And alongside these Palestinians are a lot of young Jewish people. When I was growing up, let's go and plant trees in Israel. People do that for the summer. As a student, you want to do something, they're building a new society. Israel's God's, churches would send people to go and plant trees in Israel. They may be planting trees over the whole Palestinian community, but, at least you planted a tree, right? Uh, so what's happened, all these forces, people being sensitized to what's happening, and a generation of Jewish people. When I was in my first grad degree, there was a guy who's Jewish, and I just told him, hey, man, I'm not trying to be mean, but Israel's got racism. And this guy got so mad, and you're an anti-Semite. I says, no. So he went. He went to Israel, and when he came back, he wouldn't speak to me. He put his head down. I never told him I hated Israel. It just says, man, every place has people that are outcasts. Every place. America does. This guy had Israel so high up. You have to understand that we are lied to by parents and families and institutions and schools and media. And many American younger Jews have been lied to about everything. But again, someone just put up, with the internet, you can look. For me, the thing that made me question Zionism was watching 60 Minutes with an Arab, or should say a Palestinian man, holding up the deed of his home. And the people tearing his deed up and throwing him and bulldozing his home. And in as much as I'm a person that's I'm black and Native American, all these stories of land being taken from us, for that second when I see the guy with the deed, it reminded me of stuff that happened to my family. It's like, I can't say that I like that. What I saw right there isn't making sense to me. I can't back that. Doesn't the Ten Commandments say you can't steal? They're stealing all of this stuff. Not some of it, all of it. And this is where I began to have cracks. That that's God's holy people, but they're not doing holy. Oh my God, that Palestinian's got an afro and he just got beat upside the head by the cop. That looks like some Rodney King shit. I don't think I like this. You get where I'm coming from. All of this is now here. And these Palestinian youth, along with Jewish youth and other people, they're tired. It's not just them. There are a lot of white people who are tired of the idea that there's no money for students, there's no money for homeless, no money for vets, no money for seniors, right? There's no money but we got money for war. No money for the poor, but money for war. Money for everything. We got money for Israel, but we can't do anything for our cities. We can't do anything for economically challenged whites. Yet we're constantly told on television, our Jewish brothers and sisters, they're brilliant, they're the smartest, they have this, they have resources, they're cheap. Then, if that's so, why do they have to be given so much? They got it all going on. let us let us have some of that so we can fix up where we are. And so, what's happened, my friends, is that what's been secret is now everywhere. Everybody, for the most part, knows that Israel doesn't treat people right. A couple years ago, the black people in Israel were marching by the tens of thousands. Bibi Netanyahu is a criminal. He's a crook. He's this is known. You know, there are things that Israel's been protected from. Israel's had more UN resolutions put against it than any society. I'm not saying Israel's the worst. I wouldn't say that, but it is under the Palestinians and the words of the song. Remember Richard Dimple Fields? She's got papers. The Palestinians have put papers on Israel, whether anybody recognizes it or not. The Palestinians have been raising their situation for years nonstop, even with the UN being dominated by America and England and other countries that are hostile to the Palestinians. They've been able to get people to see their situation. And the only place in the world where this information isn't really commonplace is America. The rest of the world gets it. And Germany. There are a couple of places, and that's because the Germans, I'm sorry, Hitler jacked a lot of people up. So that's like big Aryan guilt thing there. But in America, the exceedingly powerful presence of American Jews and Jewish organizations, organized Jewry, in particular the older generations, are not are opposed to, they're blind in that, and in particular they're backed because not all Jews are for this. But the most dangerous people in the country are the crooked, liar, racist, evangelical, Nazi Christians, the kind that hate everybody. They're the people that, if they were in any way Christian, not just going to church, there would be a very different situation. I'm not necessarily saying don't give Israel any money or don't give Israel, but just not be blind. I mean, every time if an Israeli head of state comes to the United States, they clap more for the Israeli speaker than they do an American one. If America did not allow the American Israel Political Action Committee to operate literally as a policy body of the United States Congress, you have people who are foreign agents. You have Americans, many of them in Congress are dual citizens. They're citizens of Israel and the United States. And a whole bunch of other people. I have these two books. I can't wait. I got to sit down and read some of these to y'all. One Nation Under Blackmail. And it talks about how the Israelis blackmail. And that's what Epstein and that's what P. Diddy and others are doing. And that's what Hugh Hefner was doing. So a lot of your politicians and important people, they've got pictures of maybe having sex with kids or animals or whatever. And they're not going to say anything. All the while telling everybody it's okay to be trans and pedophile is good. Well, then, damn it, if it's okay, you don't mind if people see pictures of you doing it, right? And that's the hypocrisy of the people in charge. So now these people on the campuses, and the campuses, if anyone knows anything about social movements, it's the people from the campuses that ultimately run societies. and this is understood. When they were talking about anti Semitism at Harvard, let me just say to you, when I was a student at Harvard, about either half or a little over half of all the faculty in Harvard were Jewish. Okay, if you look at Joe Biden's cabinet, please study. Don't believe me. Tell me what you see when you look. If you start looking at certain things, certain groups of people have power centers. The American Jewish community has a power center in the academy. And these Palestinians know it, and they've gone in and they're shaking it. And this is about a struggle over how the narrative and how people can understand what's going on. And this is very threatening to the American organized American Zionists, because these people are asking questions. Like I said to the person, there's racism in Israel like there is anywhere. And the guy was ready to spit on me. I wasn't trying to attack Israel. I'm saying there has to be. It's like, I didn't even mention Palestinians. This is, the Ashkenazi Jews don't like the Sephardic, and they don't like the Mizrahi, and they they don't like the Falash. I mean, that how is that some harsh criticism? But Israel's perfect. A lot of people get this in their head. So this thing, the campus now is these people are destroying, and they're invading sacred spaces, pushing narratives. Have we seen anything like it? Sort of. Black studies, many of you who you take for granted that you can get books on black people and have black courses. Yeah, you younger people don't know how lucky you are. You, you may not have that when I was starting school. You're lucky if you have it, right? You're lucky if you have a black teacher. You're lucky if you had it. It just the black people had black studies because they took guns into schools. I didn't know that up in New York, where they had guns. You needed guns to get black history in the school. Yeah, I need to understand that there were campus rebellions. Howard University didn't tolerate black studies. That's part of the student. Yeah, the black schools wouldn't tolerate it. It just shut up and fall in. By the way, Boulay's in charge of the HBCUs. The Boulay had to face an armed rebellion of black people to allow black history to be taught in black schools. When I tell you these people are enemies, they're devils, and until we fight them, we're damned. So I'm going to, you see this at Columbia, you see it all over. You saw that little Urkel-looking president of Harvard get fired. I told people, I told you, that bitch ain't gonna last. I mean, she looks like Urkel.
Did a show on her.
Yeah, she looked like Urkel with boobs. There was no way she's gonna be there. I told people the first time I saw Dr. Gay, that's not gonna last. Plus, she has the wrong last name. I mean, anyway, the the fight for the hearts and minds of the American people, and particularly the young people, has already been won by the Palestinians. Uh, whether I agree with them or not, the Israel was just the killing of the kids, the bombing. Nobody can beg them to stop killing. Young people who don't have mortgages to pay and all this other kind of stuff, don't have student loans, they feel like they can say shit they really think or feel. And I'm going to tell you something. The retaliation against the young people expressing themselves, which used to be seen as a healthy thing, that young people could protest the war in Vietnam. Now when it comes to Israel, we can't say anything. I'm going to just say it. If Jewish people do something, you just have to shut up and accept it. That doesn't make sense to white young people. It makes sense.
So much so I put the link in the chat, you guys, that the GOP passed a bill today on what you can do and say during a protest.
Well,
it's going to be deemed anti-Semitic.
Well, the problem is, I'm not trying to make anybody do anything. That's not what I want to do. I want people to understand that there's enough of God's earth for everybody if we really try. We don't have to like, but if people don't want to try, which seems to be where Netanyahu and these settlers, a lot of these are racist white people from Brooklyn who are there, who follow a racist guy, the rabbi, what's this rabbi for the Jewish Defense League? Come on, you know who I'm talking about, Kahane. There is at one point in recent history, Rabbi Kahane was seen as a super racist embarrassment in Israeli society. Now he would probably be a cabinet member with Bibi. Kahane hated black people's guts and basically told Jewish people that they had to treat everybody like the enemy if they're going to be strong. He moved from Brooklyn to Israel. Ultimately, I think he got killed over there. And but the settlers, they are always messing over the Palestinians, and this is now out.
Got a question for you, Dr.
Yes.
Will this devolve into the Kent State situation?
I would call it the pimp state situation. All I'm going to say to you is if they kill those people, if they hurt someone, it's slightly different for them than these young white kids. But, you know, there's a thing about Kent State that you need to understand, and that is Kent State, to this day, they've withheld the audio to give an idea of who fired the shot. What a lot of people don't know is that there were communists and other people there that wanted a bloodbath, that did things to create this situation that would be outrageous. They had an agenda. Those young people were set up. You have to understand that a lot of movements need martyrs. The NAACP let Medgar Evers get assassinated. A lot of movements need dead people. But the problem is when you shoot, when Kent State happened and that person treats Kent State as if it's in a vacuum. When they shot the kids at Kent State, the whole country went wild. it, 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 when you, it's sort of like what was happening in the 60s. Let me give you an example. When black people up north would watch southern black people get kicked and beaten, it made people flick. I'd like to see someone do that to me. I dare you. Right? That'll make more people act crazy. If they do that, they need to understand that it isn't just Palestinians. We have hundreds of thousands of Afghans here, Pakistanis here, Iraqis here, Syrians here, Lebanese here, Egyptians and Libya. Because the way it would look is if you mass shoot people, it could look like you're massacring Muslims, which is gonna, you know what? They're being very careful because if they shoot down Muslim students, people are going to burn McDonald's and American businesses all over the world. Starbucks is in trouble. McDonald's is in trouble. You know, a lot of people need to understand.
Starbucks actually has been hemorrhaging money since October 7th because of this.
A lot of people hate America and Americanism. I don't want people to hate anybody. I want people to respect each other. But a lot of people hate America and Americanism and American support for Israel. If you shoot and it looks like racist police, they just killed. Well, put you like this: they just shot them because they were black. That could create a riot here. If there was a situation, police just shot some, you know, someone's going to do something, right? If they shoot those people and say, well, we're going to kill you, we shot them because they're Arab. You don't know what they're going to do. What if they decide to fight back? Do you know that training camps for Islamic extremists in America that they've let exist? What if these people use some of their training? See, these cops, the problem in America is, and I don't want it to be a problem. The problem in America is that in Mexico and a lot of places, the police don't always mess with people everywhere like they do in America. Part of why they mess with black people here is because they have had a license to kill since the creation of this republic, to kill black people. So this concern about police and all this kind of stuff is our experience. White people are not fearful of police. And these other people come here, I mean, they've already dealt with. Do you get the idea that Palestinians are afraid of the Israelis? The problem the Palestinians has, we haven't had guns to shoot at Israelis. See, they don't have leaders like Martin Luther King saying, kiss people's ass and let them beat you. Or John Lewis. That's not real life. A lot of what Martin Luther King was telling people isn't real, like the beloved community. I'm not saying people shouldn't care about each other, but the idea that whole groups of people are going to get along, that's absolutely stupid. Dr. King, that's the dumbest ass thing that people put out that Dr. King said. I mean, how are you going to get a beloved community with skinheads? They won't allow it. And everybody black could say, shoot all of us in the head, but let one of us live and love him. They'd shoot him too. So, Dr. King, a lot of these old self-hating boomer Negroes who are dying from the COVID shots, thank the Lord, a lot of the weakling, no good black people are dying. Some of the smarter ones of us will be around. And I'm not advocating violence towards anyone. I'm saying, why spend so much energy trying to get someone that hates you to like you? Why not work on yourself? Why is that a problem? Why is cleaning up the damn neighborhood you're in? Why not study to be a doctor to help your own instead of bitching about health disparities? Open up a fucking clinic. Do something. Instead of waiting for someone that you say hates you, do something for you.
With that, you guys, we're going to close out. Unfortunately, I got to get up and go punch in a couple hours.
Well, no, it's okay. Well, I wish I was a slave. I mean, you can count on it.
We're back tomorrow. We're going to have Pat Talk, and all of us should be there for Pat Talk at 7 p.m.
And I'm hoping, guys, now that I know why I've been so tired, I missed doing my books, guys. You have no idea how much I missed it. People thought, I didn't know I was anemic. I had anemia. Let me just tell you what it's like. Yesterday, I went to see a neurologist. They took 4 vials of blood from me. I felt good at the beginning of the day. I walked like 1.1 miles, and then I took a bus for the last 0.4 of a mile to the hospital, and then I walked 1.6 miles back home. And about 3 o'clock, I had an anemia attack, and I felt pain all over. I mean, it was awful. The pain was so intense, it put me to sleep. So it's about 3:30. When I woke up, it was 4 in the morning, and I couldn't get out of bed. It took me about an hour. I was trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Then I realized, oh my God, they took blood from me. That's why, I was so damn weak. I had to take some Geritol. Some iron pills, some beetroots, some NAC, some DHA. I took everything. I took everything but Kamala Harris's pussy. That would have killed me. And I feel great. It's after midnight, and I'm functioning like I used to. I felt great once I started taking the iron, but prior to that, I would be tired. I couldn't figure out I would try to sleep, and no matter how much you sleep, you don't get the energy, right? So a lot of you guys, vitamins, iron, copper, vanadium, vitamin A, vitamin K, manganese. It's not in your food. Going back to what we said at the beginning, you have to supplement your diet. Our food that's manufactured by Nazis that hate us has been leached of its minerals.
And
You
go
have,
out there and get that sun, you guys. I
y-
know it might be too hot. Let that sun. You're not gonna get
well, they
sunburned.
like a lot of things hot. They like Kamala, so get some vitamin D from the sun.
So
Okay,
you guys,
guys.
we're gonna wrap it up. Hopefully,
Right.
you guys will see us tomorrow. Like Dr. Short said, he's gonna get back to doing his book club,
Amen.
and we gonna run it straight through. Dr. Short will be, God willing, be one of the speakers at the Reparations for Rally
Yeah, I'm gonna
on
be at the
June 15th.
reparations rally, and I want everybody to know. We want to do something in June on the 16th. It will be for black men, although you women can contribute. I'm gonna
Rally
put
for reparations. I say reparations for rally. That's rally for reparations.
Yeah, I'm gonna be at the reparations rally. I want to let you know on the 24th, Tariq Nasheed's film. What's it called? What's it called? Mike check. Oh, whatever
Yeah, it's
the
basically for you guys in the chat. It's for the historical the historical context of hip hop. It's very important.
Can I send you the link of your StreamYard? Are you asking for mine or for Quentin's? Because if you're on my StreamYard, that's the link. I don't know how to do anything else. I want to say to you,
It's Angry Black Man's Book
oh,
Club for
Angry
Dr.
Black
Short.
Men's Book Club. Angry Black Men's Book Club. We're going to do something on the 16th, the day after the reparations rally. I'm going to put up a GoFundMe. I'm going to start sharing that because we've got a lot to do. I've got to do a little traveling. You guys need to know I'm a consultant for a political race in Cleveland as well. I've got to go to a friend of mine was assassinated within the last. A brother that was a community activist was assassinated in Gary, Indiana. I've been asked to speak at the funeral, so I have to uh, get some funds and go to Gary. It's going to be in Washington D.C. on June 15th. Is going to be the Rally for Reparations, and we will be doing something to promote patriarchy, black fatherhood. I was coming up with a really nice name, which I would call patriarchs, awake, or something like that. So we want to get people to be engaged. Black men have got to stop being bitches. We've got to teach them how to be men. And I don't mean being stupid, but how can we be engaged to make our lives better? I want to remind everybody my donation link is DrRandyShort. That's both my PayPal, that is my Patreon. WRandyShort at gmail.com is my Zelle PayPal. If you enjoy, is that my link? The Angry Black Men's Book Club is my StreamYard link? Because I don't know
Well, I
what.
don't know why you want your StreamYard link. That would be able to come into
Oh,
the live after
no, no,
people
no,
get
no, no.
done.
I'm about to go off the live. That's too late for that. If somebody wants to do an interview, email me and talk to me about that.
You
Versus,
guys take care. I'm
I
gonna
don't do
close out on this.
impromptu. I don't know who I'm talking to, so you have to my email is right there. If you want to write me, write me. Let's talk. I may not want somebody on my StreamYard. I have the right to do that. Anyway, guys, y'all know how to make this thing work. We'll be back, and there's gonna be much, much, much more. Uh, People thought I was taking convalescing. Well, not exactly. I think nature had me convalescing. I gotta